This is Panda's two-handed fighter Warlock build that was submitted for build review. And they say, I would like to see if you could fine-tune my two-handed fighting Warlock build. I have the feats and enhancements here, but I don't know if they would work. Everything is pretty flexible, but I want mostly Warlock, Pallies for martial weapon proficiency mostly. I have all the content, no iconics, 32-point build, but I would like to be Enlightened Spirit. Not looking for top DPS or tankiness. I need something that's pretty easy to solo, elite to R1, 1 to 20, have at least a little success, 20 to 30, not planning to stay at 30 too long. Cool. Well, you know what, Panda? I can help you out. I really hope you have access to Fey Dark Illusionist, because if you do, holy guacamole, you're going to have an awesome build on your hands. But give me those guild buffs. Come on, you're always going to have guild buffs. Who doesn't have guild buffs? Okay. Let's get started with the actual build breakdown. You've got Paladin at 5 and Paladin at 8. That seems fine. It's mostly you just want to get the base attack bonus. So your two levels of Paladin are 2 extra base attack bonus that you wouldn't or normally get. Also, the Paladin early is going to help you out with a lot of your just basic melee damage, because having access to Turn Undead, having access to healing yourself, having access to Charisma to all your saves, all these things are great. So you ideally want to have your Paladin as like early as possible. So I probably would have gone like 3 Warlock, then 2 Paladin, and then the rest Warlock. But we'll see kind of how the feats end up shaking out as we go through. And also thank you for the hydration. So we've got Empower and Maximize at 1, Quicken at 3, Two-handed fighting at 6 before you actually get really into the melee. Improved at 9. That actually seems pretty fine. You're basically just Blaster Warlock for the most part until you get to the higher level. One of the things that's complicated about playing as a melee Warlock and why the multi-classing is a great option just for the purpose of just straight leveling is fantastic is because a lot of people don't realize you actually do get access to the... in the Enlightened Spirit tree right here, Aura of Menace, it does give you access to martial weapons. You gain proficiency with all of them, but waiting until level 12 for martial proficiency is really annoying. Now you can cast the spell Master's Touch, of course, to circumvent this, but that's really annoying. So you don't want to do that. So we're going to kind of skip out on most of that. All right. So what else is good here? Follower of the Sovereign Host seems fine. Two-handed fighting, improved two-handed fighting seems good. Improved critical slashing, of course, you definitely want to have that. The power attack, I would definitely recommend two-handed fighting over power attack. In fact, on this build, I wouldn't actually recommend power attack at all. I would recommend the opposite. So I would recommend instead of going power attack, you go with two-handed fighting, because you want the greater two-handed fighting as soon as possible, because this is a huge boost to your damage, and it's also a huge boost to your strike through, which is really nice. And then instead, down here, this is where you would pick up a different feat that's way more fun called Precision. Warlocks, unfortunately, don't get any fortification penetration, and you do melee damage with your character, and you do want to critically strike, given by the fact that you took the feat Improved Critical Slashing, indicating you like critically striking people. And right around this level, this is when you start fighting a lot of constructs, undead, higher monsters with higher fortification that you need to penetrate. For those of you that don't know, Sharn monsters, all of them have fortification. Even the humans have fortification, starting in Sharn and anything that came out afterwards. So you need to actually have fortification penetration to be able to just critically strike monsters in general. That's important. Other than that, I think that the feat progression is fine. I would probably say I would just move Paladin up sooner. So I would probably take, like, Warlock, do something like this, and then do something like this, and move the Paladin up. Because all it's going to do is basically give you better two-handed fighting here. Like, there's literally no downside to doing this. You take 4 levels of Warlock for base attack bonus 3, and then that way you've got all your attacks. Now, it does delay Soundburst by a level, but honestly, I think that's probably fine. That way you'll have your Cleave from your Enlightened Spirit tree. You'll have the 2 levels of Paladin, so at level 6, you've got access to Lay on Hands, you've got access to the Charisma to your saving throws, so your character can just easily meander its way through traps and make a bunch of saves when monsters hit them with spells and what have you at an earlier rate, as opposed to having to wait till a later level of Paladin. So this is probably how I would change the leveling process, but everything else seems like pretty good here. As far as epics, what feats do you want? That's a great question, so let's throw that in here. For starters, you want Overwhelming Critical, but more importantly than Overwhelming Critical, you really want Epic Eldritch Blast, because this gives you extra damage. You want both. So first you're going to take Overwhelming Critical, which is Actually, you're probably going to take Epic Eldritch Blast first, then Overwhelming Critical, because you do a lot of Eldritch Blast damage. And then you're going to take Overwhelming Critical. Overwhelming Critical. Then at 26, you want to take Epic Arcane Eldritch Blast, which gives you additional Pact Dice, so it gives you extra damage. Now, I'm going to go into the Pact Dice in a minute, but there are some limitations of your Pact Dice, and you'll see why. I don't dislike Celestial Pact, but there are some problems with it, and I will explain those in just a second. How far from min-maxing heal skill by doing that? Don't min-max heal skill on Warlock or Paladin. It's a bad idea, especially starting with like a low intelligence. It's not going to come out in your favor. At a higher level, you could take some of the spellcasting feats, but most of the spellcasting feats are not going to help you at this point. So this is where you're going to take something like Epic Damage Reduction for some simple defense. Here, you want to take the perfect two-handed fighting feat line to get you the extra melee power and the additional stats. And then at 29, this is where you would probably take Dire Charge with this character. However, if you want, you could also just take Perfect 2-Weapon Fighting for the just straight-up 5% double strike. Although I think Dire Charge is going to be a lot happier of a build. Finally, for your last epic feat, you have a couple different options here. Now, one of the main issues with this character build is DCs. Your character is not much of a spellcaster. Even with a high charisma, you're not going to be able to land spells perfectly every time. Monsters are going to make a reasonable amount of saves. Now, of course, depending on the difficulty that you play on, like Elite, Reaper 1, you will land some of the time, but most of the time not so much. Evards is pretty much going to be your bread and butter spell that's going to land. Everything else is going to be all over the place. And this brings a problem. Celestial Pact Warlock is really cool because it gives you amazing spells for melee. Bless, Prayer, Holy Aura. These are all fantastic melee spells. But it also has a reflex save on it, which means monsters with evasion are not going to take a lot of damage from your pact damage, which is one of the reasons why instead of just saying Warlock Celestial Pact is bad, instead you say, okay, well, my Celestial Pact doesn't work as well, which means I need to focus on things that isn't specifically Warlock Pact damage. And we're going to make a few adjustments in the future to kind of showcase that. Now, for the legendary feat, this is going to sound strange. I recommend you actually go with the Scion of Celestia. This gives you extra crit chance with your positive light and alignment spells, and your character uses those, so this is not too bad. And it gives you the extra spell power. Usually you would go with the melee power from Arborea, but it's important to note that you don't have critical threat range and multiplier from the Enhancement Tree, so you don't have like an extra competence bonus to your critical multiplier, and I'm assuming this character is probably using like a greatsword of some kind, because that just sounds about right. So greatsword or falchion or whatever, as long as you have a two-hander, you get to use all of them, so it doesn't really matter. But Scion of Arborea is better if you're focusing all in on melee, but you're kind of a hybrid, so I'd go with Scion of Celestia. Makes it a little tankier, gives you some extra damage, and is overall going to pump up your character a little bit. As far as your final feat, really you can go all over the place. But if you haven't taken this feat yet, you probably could. You could take Force of Personality to get an even higher will save if you wanted to. Just basically give yourself no fail on will saves, which is kind of nice. Or alternatively, you could take like Epic Fortitude to make it so you don't fail Fortitude saves on a 1. I'm going to put both of these in here in case you decide which one you want to end up going with and where your will saves end up landing. Now, let's look at some of the actual enhancement tree. So, as I mentioned before, you're going to run into problems with the pact damage. So getting extra pact damage out of the tree is actually not as strong as you might initially think. You look at this and you go, oh, that's extra pact damage. But monsters are going to be making their save a lot, which is really complicated because even though you have charisma, you won't have a lot of evocation DCs built into your tree. And even worse than that, a lot of the monsters, it's going to be like hard to even just get lightning spell power into your character in general. You'll have some universal spell power, which is very good, but it's going to be hard to come by. So, I would actually going to make an adjustment here. I like Tainted Scholar because you get the stanch and some of the defensive abilities, but I do think that 19 points is probably a little bit too many here for what you're actually trying to get. On top of that, there's an ability in Knight of the Chalice called Divine Might, which is a crazy high ability that gives you a whole bunch of additional damage and DCs for your tactical feats. I think this ability is great. It's really, really useful, and you can get a lot of good use out of it, but it is just hard to get it to fit into this character build where you have the points set up. Emboldened up spell DCs, it's probably not going to help that much. This character's spell DCs are probably going to be somewhere in the 70 range, which is like acceptable for every quest on hard, and then some quests on elite for like Ravenloft and stuff, and then Shard and what have you. It's going to be just all a Hail Marys trying to get your spells to land. Important note, especially about Sharn and these Hail Marys where you just like throw out the spell and you hope it works. You will find yourself in a situation where, you know, a lot of your spells aren't going to land as often as you would probably like. But there's Evard's Black Tentacles, which just works for some reason. The reason why it works is because Evard's Black Tentacles is like a strength check. So monsters will just fail their strength check, and they'll just get stuck in it, even if your DC is low. So let's change up the Enlightened Spirit tree, shall we? So, because I see a few things I would like to change. So for starters, you're going to be taking all the cores, and especially Celestial Spirit, because it gives you extra damage on all of your attacks, and also all of your blasts, which is great. You want to grab the Spiritual Defense, because you're taking this whole lineup here for the Spiritual Retribution, which is really nice. And then we're going to grab probably either PRR, MRR, or PRR is going to be more valuable in general. Then you're going to grab Celestial Bastion. You want to grab the Power of Enlightenment, because that's good. You want to grab Spiritual Word. You want to grab Power of Enlightenment, because that's really good. There's a whole bunch of spell power. I really like 1 point in Resist Energies, because this is the most convenient spell in the game. You get all the resistance energies, and you want to use this during the leveling process. This saves you a ton of mana and a ton of time, and it's just a really good ability in general. Then you want 3 points in Enlightened Spirit Eldritch Burst. This is great because it makes it so all enemies caught in the burst take a d6 light damage plus any other effects and damage your Eldritch, and damages your Eldritch Blast produced, which is fantastic. So I like this. You're going to be using this with Empower and Maximize. You could probably even take Intensify if you wanted instead of one of those other feats that I took. Get some extra damage. It's not a bad idea. Grab Spiritual Retribution. Grab Brilliance. You can grab Charisma here if you want. You had Shield. Now, actually, I like Shield because this is 10 PRR. It doesn't look like it, but you take this ability over here for 10 PRR, which is convenient, and the MRR for casting Night Shield. So it's not too bad for 4 points for 10 PRR and 10 MRR. Is that really worth it? Yeah. So, because this here would be 6 points for 6 and 6, and this is 4 points for even more, so you would take this. Celestial Spirit. I don't love Beacon. It's okay. It's basically just 20 healing amp, but it's 2 points for 20 healing amp, which is something that you'd get straight out of the human tree. Oh yeah, especially as race, I think human is fine. You need a lot of feats with this character, so that works out well. Shining Through, though, is God tier and protects you from everything, so I recommend you take that. Spirit Blast is amazing and does a whole bunch of damage, so I recommend you take this. And Displacement, Spell-like ability. You might not want to take this, but the benefit of having Displacement Spell-like ability is you always have Displacement. Now, depending on where your mana lands and how much mana you use in combat, you may just cast the spell. But I really like Displacement because it saves you a whole bunch of points. However, you can obviously just take the Charisma and other stuff here. You might notice I did not take Medium Armor Proficiency. There's 2 reasons for this. Number 1, you get it from being a Paladin, so you are already proficient with Medium and Heavy Armor. And number 3, this character screams Fate Singer. You really want to be a Fate Singer with this character. And Fate Singer, in Epics, has this super sick ability that says right here, Fate Singer, you don't suffer from arcane spell failure. And since you're a Paladin and you have proficiency with Heavy Armor, you're just going to use Heavy Armor anyway. So the idea here is you would level up, and during the leveling process, take this, and during the leveling process, we're at Medium Armor, but the millisecond you get to level 20, you click into Fate Singer, and then you can wear Full Plate, which is sick. And there's some really good Full Plate for this character build that you can use even once you get 20, that there's low-level Full Plate that will come in handy. So I would not recommend taking Medium Armor Proficiency. Yeah, Full Plate is great. It's like plate that's like full. Next, you got the Tainted Scholar Tree. You take Wand and Scroll Mastery. Wand and Scroll Mastery loses effectiveness pretty quickly because your character can just run Rejuvenation Cocoon. I don't know what level or like how many Epic Destinies and stuff you have like with your character, or how much experience with Epics you have. But for the most part, you won't really need a lot of this, but it can be useful to have the Wand and Scroll Mastery. So this is a case-by-case basis. However, if I was to redo this Tainted Scholar Tree, I would do it like so. Grab this. I would grab the Feigned Health right here. So whenever you cast a spell, it gives you bonus temporary hit points based on your Charisma. Grab the Strong Pact. Grab the Tainted Lore. Grab the Underdark Blast. And then if you really want to have the Wand and Scroll Mastery, you definitely can. Because I'm recommending you take Stanch. So you can do like Wand and Scroll Mastery and Stanch. And then go from there. That's not too bad. I know we have 13 points available. Ooh, exciting. Out of the Knight of the Chalice Tree, you're going to go into the Slayer of Evil, grab the extra Strike Through so you can hit more monsters with your stuff, grab an extra Smite because there's nothing else to take, and then take Divine Might. Divine Might is a huge bonus to your hit chance, and damage, and DC of tactical feats. Now, you don't use a lot of tactical feats with this character, but the hit chance and damage is actually pretty substantial, and you're focusing on Charisma, so this is a big benefit to you. And now let's make another adjustment here in the Fey Dark Illusionist tree. So there's a couple things I like, a couple things I don't like in here. Things that I like, extra saves, the You've Got My Back. Things I don't like, this point spent on spell points. Your character as a Warlock doesn't really spend a lot of spell points since you're melee, and these blasts here cost nothing, and your aura costs nothing. So you're just going to be constantly pulsing out crazy damage, and also using Burst and Spirit Blast on cooldown, and then when these things aren't on cooldown, you're hitting people with your sword. So that. Stormhorns your access to the VIP? I don't think so. I think Stormhorns is part of the Shadowfell conspiracy. So there's that. So I'm going to reset this Feydark Illusionist tree a little bit to get rid of some of these spell points that I don't think that you personally, or I personally do not think that you need. I think you're the dragon. I should have looked closer. But you still have to take something in here. The illusory weapon is okay. Even still, if you wanted to take the illusory weapon, this is +1 to hit and to damage, and it makes your weapon immune to damage, which is pretty convenient. Charisma to damage, which is nice. This is 20 or 10 PRR and MRR. This is Charisma, which is nice. And then you pick up the Greater Color Spray. This is pretty much everything you need out of the tree. So now you have to ask yourself, okay, where do you spend your points now? And you have a lot of different options. One, you could literally just cash in on a whole bunch of Charisma. Charisma, 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 and pick up 4 additional points. Your character is a Charisma-based character, so that could be pretty nice, and that's only costs 8 points in the tree. You've also got other options. You could go deeper into here to grab Charisma and Charisma because you have 11 points left over and be able to get a little bit extra power on your pseudo-dragon. So you lose some Charisma overall. You wouldn't get the extra 4 here, but you get some other stuff out of the Feydark Illusionist tree. Specifically, Magical Attunement, which gives you Force Critical chance. Your character will use... Oh, no, your character doesn't even deal Force damage because you deal all light. So that's not even that good because you have Underdark Blast. Whoa, so that's not even that good. Good job, Strimtom. So I would probably do something along the lines of, like, extra Charisma because Charisma is good, extra Charisma because Charisma is good, extra Charisma because Charisma is good, extra Charisma because Charisma is good. Charisma is good. And then with your 3 points left over, you could grab +3 to all saves, but honestly, you have so many high saves because all your saves are based off of your Charisma. So at this point, you've got 3 points left over you could spend anywhere. If you wanted to go further into Feydark Illusionist tree, you could. You can grab more Charisma out of Human if you want. To get even more stats and just be like, yeah, grab more Charisma. Again, another one of the problems is you don't take the capstones. You don't get, like, Ultimate Enlightenment for the extra hit points, Universal Spell Power, the Light Spell Power, and the Melee Power, Range Power, and getting full base attack bonus when you are when you have your Eldritch Aura enabled. Ultimate Enlightenment is really nice, and if you can avoid multiclassing, it's cool, but it's not the most important thing. Although the 20% confidence bonus to HP is pretty cool. But you can get this back by just using Epic Defensive Fighting, which you would probably use on this character. You don't even need Ultimate Enlightenment, so that's that. In fact, if I go to the stances, if you turn on Epic Defensive Fighting, which you would use, and Eldritch Aura, so you've got both of these active, Celestial Spirit, you've got your Divine Might active, because that one's really nice. You're not Eldritch Blasting. Cool. This is the kind of character where you don't really do the blasting. You would, if you want to do blasting, you would turn off the attack, and then you would start shooting. Or turn off Epic Defensive Fighting. And then lastly, Epic Destinies. So if you have none of these unlocked in-game, this will be a little bit of a long process to go through. But Fatesinger is the bread and butter once you get the opportunity for a bunch of reasons. So essentially, you want to take Charisma all the way up the side, up the way to the side of the tree. Also, Retry Jow, welcome to the stream. Hope you're having a fantastic day. Grab the Harmonic Chord here because this other stuff is just straight up bad. And then you want to grab Bound Fate. Grab some Charisma. And Grim Fate. The reason why you want this is because you can cast this on a boss. It costs you one of your, like, Bard Song abilities, but by doing so, it increases their damage that they take by 12% for magical and physical attacks. So it's great for when you get to the boss. Your character doesn't have that good single target damage, so being able to just add a bunch of extra damage to bosses is fantastic. And on top of that, you do hybrid, both physical and magical damage. So having both of these active at the same time is great for your character. Then you want to grab Martial Hymn, because Martial Hymn is, like, the best thing in the entire game, so you always take Martial Hymn. EDS Blast Dance is not restricted, apply to the aura. It's the same range. The aura and the range of the blast are the same thing. Then you're going to grab Blade Song from Fatesinger, because that's really convenient. Or it does a bunch of good stats. You can grab the 5th chord for the plus to tactical DCs if you want, or you can even ignore this if you don't need it, and instead take Magical Attunement here. Magical Attunement Extend is really, really convenient for your character, because you do cast Haste and Displacement on yourself all the time. Grab Charisma. Grab some more Charisma, grab Turn the Tide, and then if you want, you can take Intensify, which just gives you plus 75 extra spell power on all your auras and stuff that are passive, which is pretty sweet. Yep. I know you gotta do that. And then you have to ask yourself the question, what are the things that you would twist? Oh, would you redo your gear in your face, Fire Stroke with Feywild gear? Yes, I would. I just don't know how to do it. I'm not sure what items I would use. But there's probably lists out there of what you should use. All right. So now, what exactly do you want to do here with the rest of the character? What do you want to twist on this character? I'm going to show you a very cool twist. It's one of my favorites, and it shouldn't work, but it does for some reason. In Divine Crusader, there's an ability here called Imperial Magic. What Imperial Magic does is it says when you cast a fire, light, or healing spell, you gain a stack of Imperial Fervor. Well, I don't know why, and I couldn't tell you why, but Spirit Burst and Eldritch Burst and Spirit Blast, the two abilities from the Enlightened Spirit Tree, count as light spells. So when you press them, it gives you free crit chance and spell power. Also, your aura, when it hits people with Celestial Spirit active, deals light damage and counts as a light spell. So as long as you're fighting monsters, you get 10% free crit chance from this. That's sick. It probably shouldn't do that, but I'm not a doctor. It's not my job to figure that out. So that's pretty sweet. So that's a great twist for this character. And if you wanted to stay on the budget end of twists without having to farm out a whole bunch of stuff, you could come into Divine Crusader, pick this up, and you get 4 twists. So this would cost you 15 points. It doesn't even cost you everything. Move into the... what do you got down here? The Exalted Angel Tree. Pick yourself up Radiant Power, so it's really efficient on the twists. Move down into Primal Avatar, so you still have to level up a few things. Get Rejuvenation Cocoon, really efficient on the twists. And then move down to the Magister Tree. Pick up the Impregnable Mind so you don't fail will saves on a 1 automatically, and +6 to all your will saves. And now your character doesn't fail saves on a 1, has a huge bunch of bonuses to different stats. Highly recommend it. This is a easy build to take, and you're here. Now you might ask the question, why would you want to be in Fatesinger in the first place? That is a good question, but there's a bunch of reasons. Number one, each core of the Fatesinger tree gives 10 spell power and 10 melee power, which means that if you just level this up, that's 60 melee power and 60 universal spell power. Spell power is awesome, and it's useful for your character. It affects everything you do, and the melee power is good for all your melees. The top here gives you 25 extra spell power, and the Intensify is 75 additional spell power on all your spells that you cast, which includes your Eldritch Burst and Spirit Blast. So without even doing anything, just by being in here, you gain 160 extra spell power on your Spirit Blast or Eldritch Burst, or 160% extra damage. How cool is that? Then you also get to pick up Turn of the Tide, which gives you +4 Charisma when you press it. You can press this button all the time because it's a very short cooldown. It's 3 minutes and it lasts for 45 seconds. So you just literally press it whenever you have it. Don't even worry about saving it for the boss. Just press it on cooldown. You'll love it. You'll be really satisfied. If you're trying to do like R10s and stuff, measure your time. But especially during the leveling process, just press it all the time. And it gives you 40% extra weapon damage and 4 Charisma. You'll love that. And then on top of that, you just get a bunch of extra Charisma. Martial Hymn is really good. The Bound Fate is really good. You'll have a good time with this character. Yeah, so this is pretty nice. Now, granted, if you are playing as this character, you can, because you get Harmonic Resonance, where every time you attack, you increase the damage that a monster takes from Sonic. Instead of going as a Celestial Warlock, this would also work well as a Fey Warlock, since Fey Warlock does Sonic damage, so you would increase the amount of Sonic damage that monsters take by 50%, and it's self-synergistic. The problem is, I think that it's probably not that big of a deal with this character. I think it's probably better to just stick with Celestial, because you get all the extra spells, which are pretty nice for making your character work. But again, entirely up to you. Alright. Now let's next look at the spells. Oh, you already did pick the spells. Double Soundburst, baby. Why is that here? Triple Magic Circle against Evil. Triple Prayer. And triple Holy Aura. Yeah, that's a bug with the packed spells right there. Anyway. Yeah, I didn't notice that. It must be just the pact is applying multiple times to the spells, which is kind of neat. And yeah, because I can't select these. So these are the auto-granted ones. They got the little red outline. As far as your spells go and which ones you should take, Jump and Resist Energy, no. You want to take Night Shield and Resist Energy. The reason you want Night Shield is because with Night Shield and the Shield passive here, this gives you 10 physical and 10 magical. I did not switch pact. That might have happened before this, but I did not. Wait, you can't be an Eldritch Aura and pick defensive fighting at the same time? Really? You used to be able to. Interesting. All right. Well, that changes things a little bit. Not too much. It just means you're maybe you have to think about your tankiness a little bit more. But I can change that in the stances. Interesting. I did not know that. I could have sworn you could. Precision. Marshal him. Alright, seems good. Alright. Yeah, so that's how you want to do that. Spells. Instead of water breathing, you could take anything, but water breathing is fine, I guess. None of these spells are good, so it doesn't matter. Displacement and Dimension Door. Oddly enough, I do like these two options. One of the benefits of taking Displacement out of the tree, instead of taking Displacement, you can take Haste. I would say that you always want to have Dimension Door, but Haste is really, really nice since you get to extend it on your character. So consider Haste as an option here, but then not having Dimension Door is the worst, unless you get Scrolls of Dimension Door and don't have to worry about it. Another spell that's really good here is True Seeing for yourself, so you can cast it whenever you need it. It's not too bad. But other than that, yeah, there's no real good spells here other than Evard's. Hold Monster is not going to land too often based on your DCs, and you can get Scrolls of Teleport, so don't worry about that. Tensors is okay. It's not that bad of a spell, but honestly, again, with the DCs, there's not too much else you would take. That seems fine, and then Mass Hold Monster is not too bad. I personally prefer Whale, because your Whale is going to land more often, just because it might kill monsters sometimes, which is pretty cool. So that's just me. Alright. So let us move into the next step, which is equipment. So, why is that heavy armor thing really cool? Well, the reason why that heavy armor thing is really cool is because if I go in here and I look for heavy armor, what kind of armor would I want to wear? And the answer is this one, the Blessed Bulwark. Because there's an item set that's the Flame Cleanse Fury, which gives fire, force, light, and positive spell power. Well, that light spell power is going to be really helpful. On top of that, you want all of these stats. The cloak that goes with it, the Hallowed Trail, is super duper powerful for your character, considering you want the Radiance lore, the Radiance, the Evocation, and all that other stuff. That's really nice. On top of that, you also want to grab the Hallowed Castigators, because this gives you Insightful Sheltering, Healing Lore, and Devotion. These are all great effects. You can use it really well for yourself, and if you happen to have a heroic version of this, you can just slap this in once you hit 20 and you put on Fate Singer, so that's going to make you pretty happy. Additionally, this character is not a shield-using character because you're a two-handed fighting character. As far as your weapon goes, you can pick pretty much whatever weapon you want. Obviously, if you want to go like all style, you go with Eidolon of Shadow, which is the most stylistically interesting two-hander. It's got a charisma to hit and damage automatically built into it, so you don't have to take the points out of the Fey Dark Illusionist tree. You can take other stuff instead. And since you're actually saving yourself on the points in the Fey Dark Illusionist tree, you can take like whatever you want. However, you don't need to use Eidolon of Shadow. You can literally use any weapon in the entire game. And of course, I'm going to recommend the absolute best weapon in the entire game in Dungeons & Dragons Online two-handed fighting, Hail of Sulumides. Also, Mirana of Flame is kind of neat too because it does fire damage, but that's not very good. So that's the best one. Are you going to get this? Probably not. But you could. If you don't have this, just go into Ravenloft and talk to the dude in Barovia and take any of the two-handed weapons that you think is cool. Falchion is probably the best one. Or alternatively, if you want a realistic version of this because you don't plan on doing raiding, instead, you'll get the Tail of the Scorpion. It's an almost identical weapon, it just does less damage. So take Tail of the Scorpion. If you don't have Tail of Sulumades, this one just comes from Toxic Treatment, and you can get that one as well. And then we look at other items. Let's see here. You know what this needs? This needs a Winter Set. Yeah, Winter Set's pretty good. You also need an artifact. You know what's like a really good artifact? The Prince's Gauntlet's like a pretty good artifact. It's got Constitution, Quality Resistance on it. Wow, look how tanky your character is now. That feels like pretty good. Then you also need another item that's like part of the Winter Set to fit it in here. And you know what's a really good item that fits into the Winter Set? It's up here. It's called the Crown of Snow. Crown of Snow is super good because it gives you a freezing effect on all your spells, which means every time your aura pulses, it can freeze people, and it gives you Spell Focus Mastery and Insightful Spell Focus Mastery. Holy moly, color me happy. And then you need to pick up one more effect. But damn, dude, how do you get one more effect? That's crazy. You need one more winter item to fill out this set, and then you just gotta get your charisma and other stats. Where are you even going to get a lot of these items? Well, wouldn't you know it, there's this really cool necklace called the Winter Court Necklace that gives you Profane Life Force 72 for all of that juicy extra health, and Profane Spell Focus. Wow. Then you've got Insightful Con, Quality Con, Regular Con, and Profane Life. That's even cool. And False Life. All you're missing is Vitality, and you're going to be a happy camper. You also need to figure out the rest of the items for this build, because you got the 4-piece of the Winter, you got the Flame Cleanse Fury, and of course, you need to figure out how to get Lightning Spell Power into this build. Which is a great question. I honestly don't know. Also, you need Charisma. That's another good one. So let's get some Charisma fitting into this build. How do we get the Charisma in here? Well, get yourself a Black Satin Waist is an option if you want it. Gives you spell focus masteries. It'll really help out with those DCs just a little bit. On top of that, you can get some good stats. But another problem that you notice is like, hey, what about my offensive stats? What if I want to hit the monsters? What if I want to kill people? How do I do this? These are also big problems. And the answer is going to come here. First, you're going to use one of your rings to grab a very fun ring called the Ring of Prowess. The Ring of Prowess is really useful. Your character does not have deadly or accuracy, and the melee power will actually help you out, so that's not too bad. On top of that, you're going to go here, and instead of your regular belt you would use, you're going to get the Belt of Sure Strikes. This gives you magical sheltering, and it gives you quality accuracy. The insightful accuracy just comes from having charisma, so this just kind of fits together right away immediately. Then you needed charisma, because charisma is important. But none of the other items in the game are going to give you any charisma, which is why you get a collective sight that gives you charisma and insightful charisma. Because that's always a fun thing, to get all your charisma in one place. Damn, do I feel good. And then now, all you need left is quality charisma and lightning spell power. Now, the problem with quality charisma and lightning spell power is it's going to be really hard to pick up anywhere else here. That's going to be very difficult to do. There's going to be a difficult challenge to fit in here. Quality charisma is really only going to go onto a slave lord's item, and while you could do a slave lord's item, then you're going to be really sad about some of the other items. It's important to note that all this stuff is non-raid gear, and it's very easy to come by. But yeah. Outside of that, you have a couple different options. You, of course, can use the Ring of Spring Storms to get lightning lore and magnetism if you wanted. That one's not too bad, but it's an option. Like I said, it's definitely an option. Not where I would love to go, but it is something that you could physically do. Alternatively, you could also use like the Shattered Onyx to get the Insightful Charisma if you wanted, but then that's pretty much all that would do. And it has the Profane Spell Focus Mastery, so this would give you another +2 to your spell DCs if you wanted to do that. But if you wanted to get all of the lightning spell power and go all in, you give up 2 points of charisma, grab yourself the Bottle of Rainstorm, which gives you insightful and quality lightning spell power, and then you could also pick up the lightning spell power right here. Lightning spell power. Lightning spell power. Spring Storms. There you go. Radiant pack is not radiant. No, it's lightning. Yes, correct. Celestial is lightning. But it's got like a yellow lightning-y effect, and it goes like bzz, bzz, bzz when it hits people. This is an okay gear set. It has one piece of raid gear, which you can just sub this out, by the way. This is completely superfluous. You can replace this with basically anything you want. An item that could replace it, possibly, is the Bottle of Shadows, which gives you Profane Well-Rounded if you want +2 to all your stats. Conduit of the Arcane could also work, giving you mana, which is not too bad, because mana is mana. Or you could just grab the Battle-Worn Metal, get the Quality Charisma, get the Quality Double Strike, get Greater Heroism, and then you're all set, which is probably, honestly, a slightly better build idea in general. And then you're here. This requires no raid gear, just attacking some stuff. You got the Ring of Spring Storms, that sort of thing. You have accuracy and quality accuracy and insightful accuracy, so you have most of the accuracy stats. The ones that you're missing, the big ones, you don't have any double strike with this character, so your melee attacks are not going to be as good as possible. But that's the problem with hybrids, baby. You got too many stats. You need light spell power, lightning spell power, accuracy, double strike, deadly, sheltering, insightful sheltering, quality sheltering. You have a lot of stats and all the health. This is tough to come by. But your character should be pretty good. Ability scores, you've currently got 62 con and 81 charisma. Oh yeah, I forgot about filigrees. I'm going to build some filigrees with this character. The cool thing about this is you can just reincarnate and do this over and over and over and run the gauntlet if you want to get some points. Not that bad of a build. What fits in here? It's a good filigree. Voltaic Experiment is electric and spell power. What fits this build? I have like literally no idea. You don't really need the DCs that you would normally pick up. Man, I have no idea. I don't know what type of filigree you would use. Electric? Yeah, well, there's Voltaic Experiment, and then there's another one that has an electrocution here, which you could possibly use, but like, that one's not that great. I would probably just, if I'm being honest, I would just go straight in on all in on charisma. As much charisma as you possibly could get on this character, which is not as exciting, obviously depending on your level of filigree. I'm going to do 2 sets of filigrees here to kind of give you like a perspective on that. What does the electrocution set even do? I don't know. Damage on melee power and permanent energy sheath. Actually, this one's not too bad, so I'd probably do something like this. Do like electrocution, MRR, execution, PRR, and like electrocution, constitution. The nice thing about this is these filigrees are insanely common, so you can easily get them all rared up, and people will be able to trade them with you because nobody wants this. Not a single person I've seen. But This gives you 50 spell power, and it gives you 14 extra d6s of electric damage per hit, which is not too bad. Plus, you take half damage from electric, which is not too bad. And then as far as your actual final bit of set bonus here, again, anything that gives you some charisma is probably where you'd want to go. So just straight up grabbing charisma if you wanted to. You grab like Eye of the Beholder charisma, grab a Radiant Fervor charisma, grab a Reverberation, grab whatever you want. Anything that fits in Otto's charisma, it doesn't really matter. You just want to get as much charisma as possible because charisma is going to increase your main stat. Now, if I wanted to try this and build this gear set again, this is going to be Raids LOL. This is the Raids LOL gear set, and we're going to change this up a little bit. What would you use if you actually wanted to super spec this out? There's not too many big differences here, actually. I think that a lot of these items are, for the most part, good. But as I said, you would go Tale of the Sulamades here, which is a little bit better item. Even still, a lot of the raid gear is not super essential for this build. I actually still think that the Battle-Worn Metal is in a good place. Ring of Spring Storms, don't know how much I love this, but the biggest change here is the filigree. So as opposed to using all of these ewy, gooey, lame filigrees, you're going to go really, really crazy into the Charisma 2 filigrees. Double dipping on these to get as much charisma as possible, and that's basically all you're going to be doing, is getting as much charisma as you can physically fit into one of these builds. So this goes into an artifact, this goes into your weapon, this goes into an artifact, this goes into your weapon. So you've got all of these stats. You actually do want to pick up the and the Reverberation gives you additional damage per hit of Sonic, which is not necessary, but it actually is kind of convenient because you actually increase the amount of damage that monsters take from Sonic, which is pretty cool. So consider that. And then you've also got, out of this build, the ability to finish off the Sanctified Fervor set, which is pretty convenient, plus all the tankiness from having these two different filigrees here. So I would probably finish off Sanctified Fervor, since you can grab some of the smites if you want, or to get the extra like healing amp and range power. So you get to pick up melee and range power and double strike. So I would go like Sanctified Fervor. I wouldn't do the whole set, but just do a little bit. So Sanctified Fervor. Charisma here. So that gives you the 3-piece, so it gives you 5 melee and range power. And then probably To Hell and Back. To Hell and Back. Charisma. Get that going. Embraced by Light charisma. You've got a lot of charisma, so you're up to 92 now on this character build. And you don't need +1 to all saving throws. You don't really need... And you have the +10 to spell power, so that's fine. So you actually don't need any of those saving throws. And at this point, you would just probably grab whatever you wanted for charisma. I don't even know. Or even like a single filigree. Probably like something dumb like MRR. ERR. All these things are probably fine. It doesn't really matter. So you don't even need this last filigree slot. But you could, if you had more slots, you could do that. But this is like an 8-piece sort of thing. Are they going to fix it? Probably. I just don't know when. But until they fix it, yeah, they will fix it. But until they fix it, I'm just going to use it. Exactly. It's not crazy overpowered. It's an extra investment into resources. So now with this character build, your character's got saving throws. Your fortitude's pretty high. Oh yeah, reflex saves you got to have. This is where you also want to put in the augments. These ones are not too hard to come by if you have the ability to get them. Grabbing yourself a not false life augment. A resistance augment, getting +11 to all your saves. It's pretty nice. You want to keep that up. Also, this is where you also want to make sure you're actually having the builder look at it with your spells being cast. So you look at the party buffs. So you yourself are casting a bunch of these spells. You have your Aura of Courage on yourself. It gives you stats. You have Bless on yourself because you cast it. You have Displacement on your character because you cast Displacement. You're under the effect of Greater Heroism. Because if you don't have this, you would cast a Scroll on yourself to make sure you're using it. So you would keep Scrolls of Greater Heroism. Holy Aura you would have cast on yourself. Jump you would have cast on yourself because you have the spell Jump. You'd have access to Night Shield, because you're casting that on yourself. You don't need merfolks in here. Again, these are just the spells that you physically cast, so you'll always have these active. This isn't like, you know, oh, I'm going all over the place and picking up effects you don't need. These are just literally the effects that you get. You always have access to Shield, because it's always on you. And yeah, you would probably cast Tensor's Transformation in combat just to give you the extra base attack bonus, because that's pretty good. I think that's pretty much it. Oh, and Protection from Evil, because you cast Protection from Evil on yourself. Cool. So again, with the spells cast, you're at 94 reflex, 75 will, 73 or 94 fortitude, 73 will, 75. I can't words. The numbers on screen are not too bad. Your physical breakdowns, character's got 25 86 health, so a lot of health. Thank you, all of this health. And this is without epic defensive fighting. It's just all of the additional stats that you get. Constitution bonus, warlock levels, epic levels, that sort of thing. So that's pretty sweet. Although this looks like it has shining through temporary HPs on it. So you're at like closer to like 1700, which is not too bad given the amount of stats that you have. And then defensively, character's got some armor class, but you're at 216 PRR, 170 MRR. Not too bad. A good amount of fortification. I don't know how this is displacement 100. Oh, because spell displacement and displacement are stacking somehow? That's funny. Breakdown source. Enchantment. Enhancement. Oh, one's enchantment and one's enhancement. Interesting. They should both be enhancement bonus, I believe. Or I guess they're technically concealment bonus. Not enchantment or enhancement. It's all concealment is the channel. And then you have a good amount of melee power. Problematically, again, the things that you're missing, double strike. You have basically no double strike in this build, and there's a real way to fix that, which is unfortunate. But what are you going to do? As far as your magic goes, you don't have that much mana. You can use an augment to get in here, but you don't really spend a lot of mana when you're casting spells anyway, so it's not that big of a deal. I wouldn't really worry too much about this. However, your spell powers, your light and alignment is around 900 with your actual spell-like abilities, which is good. And on your passive, you've got your positive spell power, again, same thing. So when you're casting out abilities like, Rejuvenation Cocoon on yourself or others, it's going to be really high with this type of build. So that's pretty sweet. And then critical chance is not the highest, but you have a little bit of it, so it's good enough. And again, your DCs, you don't really get a lot of universal DCs with this character, so expect stuff to get resisted. Just don't worry about it. Just hit people with your weapon, because that's the whole point. And then, of course, your actual weapon. 148 to hit right here. I feel like this is less than it is in-game. But, yeah. Because Prayer is also only doing 1 when it should be doing... this should be doing 4, based on your level. So, I guess Prayer, the buff, is not putting... based on your caster level. I don't know how that would be fixed, but yeah. So Prayer's not doing that. And, oh, that reminds me. I wanted to fix something else. And, yeah. That's pretty much it. That's how I would change this. So, Panda, I hope you like it. Is everything good? That work well for you? PandaPitou's, these ideas. Again, it'll have the, both the stats in here. So, if I just change up, like, the armor set, you lose a little bit of stats, but you still have the health. You still have, like, a good amount of mana. You still have a good amount of PRR and MRR, that sort of thing. And it helps you out. And again, if you want to farm out this gear set, this is a non-raid gear set. Electrocution. All these filigrees, by the way, you can 100% get rare from people. Actually, these two not. Sanctified Reverberation are insanely rare. But these ones are in circulation everywhere. Just ask a guy, and they'll do that. Do I have a Bow Ranger build? Blairlos, I have the Bow Ranger build.